I'm Bob, and I collect stamps. Welcome back. This is Bob Collects Stamps, and I'm Bob. And this is my first ever top 10 video. And these are my top 10 U.S. stamps that I could find today. They're all in my collection. I scanned them and found some information about them, and which you'll see at the end. That information will come at the end. I'm going to go through them and let you see the stamps, talk about them just a little bit, why I like them, why I think they're nice stamps, and then at the end, I will run the information that'll be sort of in the form of a slideshow. I'll just let you read it. Maybe I might narrate it. We'll see. All right. This first stamp is Scott number 588. And this is from the 4th Bureau's issue, and it is of President William McKinley. I like this stamp. It's a nice, classic black and white stamp. It just oozes authority to me. It's a very classic stamp. I think it's classic in design. It has the 19th century feel about it without being 19th century. It's a really nice stamp. I think it's interesting that it's in black. Previous McKinley stamp was also in black. He was assassinated. He was our second president to be assassinated, and he was assassinated in 1901, only 25 years before this stamp was issued. Pretty stamp. I think it's a pretty stamp. It was. It also has personal. McKinley has personal meaning to me because it's the way we knew how old my great-grandmother was. She did not have a birth certificate, and she just knew she was 5 years old when McKinley was assassinated. So we think she was born in about 1891. So he was assassinated, the Pan American Exposition, shot there. Died 5 days later, and Theodore Roosevelt became president. But that's that stamp. I think take a close look at it. I think you'll like it too, even if you don't normally like the 18th century stamps or the 19th century stamps. Excuse me. I think you probably will like this one. I hope it's kind of a transition into the new era of stamps. The second stamp is Scott 853. It's of the New York World's Fair, and it is bringing us into the future from 1939, and it is from the 1939 New York World's Fair. It has this cool, simple, modernistic, very 1930s feel to it. The simple triangle and sphere that were buildings at the New York World's Fair. The design of the stamp reflects to me the modernness that they were trying to go for at the 1939 World's Fair. And in fact, the building with the sphere, hosted a World of Tomorrow display, which was a model town that you could take a sliding walkway across and see all those wonderful things that were supposed to be coming in the future that have not arrived yet. That's how the future is, the future that used to be. And I like that. It's a very simple, again, a classic-ish design. It's not the 19th century classic design, but what we would now consider a modern classic design, almost Art Deco, but not quite. The next one jumps forward a bit to Scott number 1803. This is W.C. Fields, and I love W.C. Fields. I have not seen all his movies. I enjoy the man. He was a good performer, started in vaudeville, and This was part of the performing arts issue series, and it stands out to me as a very 70s, 80s classic design. It represents that to me. It's not just the W.C. Fields stamp that I see here, but I see all the colors. They're not bright, but they're not as muted as the previous stamps were. This is a nicely colored and nicely designed stamp of a classic Hollywood figure, and I just like the idea of this. The whole series is good. This, I think, is the best one, and there are 12 of them. This is the number 4. I think this just stands out as a good example of late 70s, early 80s design, and so I think it's a cool stamp. Scott number 1548. This is from the American Folklore series, and it was issued in 1974, and this is the first and only stamp I have ever sold. So it has a personal meaning to me. I love it. I loved it when I bought it at the post office from the philatelic desk, and well, it wasn't a philatelic desk really, but they understood me. And they understood what a plate block was, and I bought a plate block. It was wonderful. I was collecting stamps, and I thought it was so cool. And like 2 weeks later, I sold it for face value to the stamp store down the street because I had another addiction, not food, not drugs, fish. And I have always regretted selling that stamp, except now I have a story about it. I can't dine out on it, but now I have a cool story about it. So it's a beautiful stamp. It's bright colors. It's 1980s. I love the story of the legend of Sleepy Hollow. I love Ichabod Crane. I think it's wonderful. I think the Headless Horseman is fantastic. And I really, really love this stamp. Not just because it was the only one I've ever sold, but it was really cool. It's just beautiful. And I now have that, as you can see, the plate block back. I don't have a lot of them. It's not my overall favorite stamp, but it is one that I find hard to resist when I see a plate block or something for less than a few dollars. So I do enjoy it, and I will continue to enjoy it. This one, jumping back again, is my favorite stamp. This is my favorite U.S. stamp, my favorite stamp ever. This is Scott number 943. You will find out more about it in another video that will be coming up eventually when I get it all together. I've got a couple more things to pull together in order to get that together. This celebrates the Smithsonian Institution's 100th anniversary. It took a lot of pushing to get this stamp issued, several years of pushing by the director of the Smithsonian and the secretary of the Smithsonian, that's the director, and a bunch of other people that really wanted this stamp. And I used to work at the Smithsonian. I didn't work at this building. This is the Smithsonian Castle. It's the original Smithsonian building. It's neoclassic. And not neoclassic. Norman classic. And it's a beautiful building. I've had lunch there several times. There used to be a restaurant in it. Now it's all offices, I believe. And I actually worked across the Washington Mall from it in the Natural History Building. But this just was my enchanted castle, and I just love the building. I love the story of the building. I love the story of the Smithsonian, where James Smithson left the United States a bunch of money, $50,000, which is something like $8 billion in this economy, and he had never been to America as an Englishman, traveled in Europe, but never made it over here, but he thought us a cool young country and that we needed something like the British Museum or that history of things. He liked our innovation. And he left in 1846 that money to the United States, and it took in order to form, as it says on the stamp, an institution to promote an increase in knowledge among men. Now, women. Now, Congress wrangled over it. They didn't want to accept it. They didn't know what kind of institution to put together. But eventually they did accept it. And it's a weird story of how we got the money. And that will be told in a future video, which I guess I better start working on. Okay. But it's a beautiful building. I encourage you, if you're in Washington, to at least stop by the outside. And Smithson's tomb is inside, sarcophagus is inside the lobby of the building. And there's an information center there. And I encourage you to go see it, just to say you have. But that's my favorite stamp, partly for that. Also, my grandmother did, while I was working there, my grandmother did a needlepoint of this castle, and did that for me, and I have that still. This next stamp is Scott number 1084. What it is? Ooh, it's Devil's Tower. I love Devil's Tower too. I think it's a nice, beautiful, classic stamp from the 1950s. It's a classic of the 3-cent commemorative issues. This one celebrates actually the Antiquities Act, the 50th anniversary of that. That same Teddy Roosevelt, who became president on the death of William McKinley, oversaw the passage of the Antiquities Act in 1906, and 3 months later signed into existence the Devil's Tower National Monument. It's a beautiful piece of geology. It is really outstanding. It's yes, I've been there. It was, of course, the site of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. If you have not seen that movie, try it out, even if you don't like science fiction. There's more than regular science fiction in it. If you're not a fan of science fiction, but and don't believe everything you see from the top of that mountain. You need to be a rock climber to get to the top of the mountain, and you need to be a real imaginative person with a big fantasy life to believe that all of that stuff could fit on that mountain. It is not that big around at the top as they show there. They need the big sound stage for that. The mountain is not that big. The Antiquities Act is cool. It allows the president to unilaterally sign into existence national monuments. Some of those become national parks, some of them don't. Some of them get messed with, borders. Recently, that's been in the news the past 10 years or so. I recommend taking a look at this stamp. It's a really pretty stamp. It's kind of lavender violet, and it's just a really nice stamp, well engraved, and reproduced from a photographic print, but really nice. This next stamp is Scott 1278, and it is Thomas Jefferson. He's kind of like a hero to me. So he's polymath, interested in everything, able to do everything. The things he didn't invent, the things that Ben Franklin didn't invent, Thomas Jefferson invented. It seems, anyway, at least until Thomas Edison. This is one of many stamps that Thomas Jefferson is on. Of course, to me, they all seem to be in green, but he is the third most common person to appear on U.S. stamps. Benjamin Franklin is second, and George Washington, of course, is first. But I thought that was interesting. And he just a cool gentleman. In the War of 1812, you may have heard it recently, about the fact that in 1814, the British Army burned the Capitol building, and in it was the Library of Congress. Well, Jefferson sold his library to Congress to reform the Library of Congress, over 6,000 books. And he sold that, and it became what is now the Library of Congress collection, the start of that collection after it was completely destroyed by the British in 1814. That's okay. It's a good library. It was a good library that he had, and that was fortunate. Yeah, I've got notes down here, so I keep looking at them. Sorry. If you hadn't guessed that already. So this stamp, next one, is 1504. It is a rural America stamp, and it's one I constantly get confused with the Cattle in the Snowstorm stamp, which is supposed to be the most beautiful U.S. stamp ever produced. I like the Cattle in the Snowstorm, but I actually like this more modern version even better. It's not Cattle in the Snowstorm. It is the centennial of introduction of Angus cattle into the United States from Scotland. In the background are Texas Longhorn. The Scottish cattle only 4 of them were brought over. They were brought over and bred in Kansas to Texas Longhorn. And everybody laughed at this guy who brought over these cows that had no horns, and they were from Scotland, so they were wimpy little cattle, and no, they were not little, but all of that. And he crossbred them with the Texas Longhorn, and they got what is called hybrid vigor. They're not hybrids in the biology sense of the word, because hybrids usually mean between 2 species, but in breeding cattle, they're a mongrel. Like you breed a German Shepherd and the Collie, and you have what you got from these new cattle, new American Angus cattle. About 1,200 were brought over in the next 10 years, but because everybody said, hey, let's do that, because the cattle that he bred were all black. They were hornless, so people were not getting gored anymore, and they weren't harming each other as badly, especially if the bulls got together. And they lasted the winter wonderfully well. It gets cold in Scotland, and it gets cold in Kansas, and so they were fine in the Midwest winters, and like we're going through right now. And people stopped laughing at the funny cattle with no horns and started buying them, bringing them over, and importing them. This last stamp is the last of the stamps, as well as the most recent of the stamps. It's about 6-7 months old, in fact. It's one of the most beautiful stamps, I think, that has ever been produced by the United States. I really do. It is Scott number stamp 5525. It is Our Lady of Guadalupe, the traditional Christmas stamp for 2020. It was issued on October 20th, 2020, and it's just gorgeous. I love old art, and I happen to love most of the Marian Child stamps that the U.S. issues now every other year. because I love the paintings on them. They just pick really good paintings. This one, I love the style of art. It's sort of a European Cuzco, Peruvian style art, and it's really, really good. Cuzco has, from this 18th century when this was made, Cuzco had a particular style of art. European painters tried to teach them what art was, European art was, and they came up with this wonderful style that's part native, part European, and who knows what else. And it's really cool. And this particular painting, this is not the full painting. This is a detail in the full painting. You can see most of the Madonna's dress, but it's just even on this stamp, it's cut down. It's just really gorgeous to my eye, and I love it. Something I want to get. I have something I want to get again. It's the traditional Christmas stamp. Again, is usually offered a new one is offered every other year, and so this one will probably be on sale through December of this year, 2021. So I want to get some more. Hopefully I will be in a position to get another booklet, even if it's the 2021 version. I had to use these stamps this year. That's why you only see two, but they're just really gorgeous. And I'll put up a close-up also of that stamp because I want to share it. I also hope to get the British stained glass window stamps from this past Christmas. They struck my eye. I just have not been able to obtain them yet, and I hope to in the not too distant future. But that, for now, concludes my take on these 10 beautiful stamps, and I will show you some more information about them, some in a slideshow that will come up in just a moment, and you'll get more information about the specs on the stamps and a little of the description, some of which I touched on here, but you'll get more. You may need to pause the video to read it, but I hope I have done a pretty good job in editing it to put it together in order to make it visible to you. Okay? All right. Keep collecting. Collect what you want. Don't follow anybody else's rules, except have fun and take care of yourself and your stamps. Thanks for watching.